Hey guys, and welcome back to the Craft of Gaming. I'm your host, Bill Hannings. It's been a busy couple of weeks for me as I help GM a LARP, and while that is awesome, I'm glad it's over. At least for a little while. I don't understand the kind of effort it must take to run a monthly LARP, and I have great respect for those who do it. Well, let's talk about this episode, though. This week's episode is going to be looking heavily more at LARP related things, though the lessons in it, in some cases, also apply to tabletop. In this week, we're going to be talking about kitting out your character and developing a look for them. As always, my advice tends to start with a question. What does your character do? Who are they? Are they a soldier? Are they a knight? A mage? A space wizard? Good guy or bad guy variant? Work from the story and you've got some ideas. Heck, they might be like a space marine or something. Or just some guy with a gun, good or bad. You know how it goes. So, most of my characters tend to be soldiers or knights, so they're often wearing uniforms or armor based on the things that they're aligned with. Be they an idea, a lord, a country, a republic of star systems, you get the idea. But that's an easily visual shorthand. And for some players, they're not going to have that easy of a time because they don't have that kind of core characteristic of being a joiner. So say you're writing something like an accountant who's about to be thrust into a paranormal world. They probably don't have a distinctive look like you might find in a more bombastic movie or anime or book or whatnot. They're a person and they just wear what someone might wear to an office. But even then, they're going to have the tools of their trade with them. It might be something as simple as an electronic key card that they use to get into their office building every day. But there are telltales about what jobs most people do. For example, I personally use a work key card to get into my job. You might not be able to tell me out on the street as an office worker, but if you see that key card around my neck, you'll probably get the idea. Do remember your characters are people, and people tend to have habits and things that they love. I have a specific jacket and a set of shirts that I love to wear, and at least one or two jackets which I reserve solely for when I want to look more impressive or go like on a date or something. At LARP, you're probably at some kind of gathering where your character is going to want to dress at least somewhat to impress. So find an article of clothing that the character would consider their best or favorite and work from there. This is easier when you're writing a character for a tabletop, as with words you can dress anyone any way you want, and even easier if you yourself are an artist and can draw them and make them memorable by putting them to paper or electronic pads or whatnot. If your tabletop uses ministers, choose something properly representational of their equipment, appearance, and personality. I tend to play pugnacious characters, so I spend a lot of time fussing over and seeking out miniatures and painting them to reflect the personality I'm trying to portray with my role-playing and descriptions and voice. All right. My next part is my favorite. Weapons. So you're playing a combat character. And what you're going to want is a distinctive profile. Choose something that fits both your practical fighting style and your aesthetic. I happen to love two-handers, for example. So I had to find a two-hander that worked for me and was the right mix of massive brute force aesthetic and actually fast to swing, so which is the kind of practicality I needed. I spent several $100s finding proper swords for myself. Honestly, that's a little bit much. I don't recommend doing what I did. Ask for more advice and listen carefully. I found that Atelier Nemesis tends to make the best stuff, but it is very spendy. There's a lot of considerations when you're getting this kind of kit, but aesthetics, cost, and practicality all sort of get weighed separately, but they come together to help you make your decision. Consider also if your character is part of a regular military unit, what sort of things that might be standard issue if that's the case, or if they're more of a scavenger or adventurer type with individualistic style or weapon choices, or if they're like a mercenary or something. Profile. So, you've got all the sweet junk that you're going to wear for your character. Some of it's weapons, some of it's like equipment. How do you all make it work together? Well, gosh, it's time to consider belts, sheaths, backpacks, holsters, pouches, even like bags and that kind of thing. You may end up looking like a damn Rob Liefeld character. I know that I always do. That or someone that John Blanche drew. Either way, it looks kind of awesome. I know I'm a bit ridiculous, but honestly, that's what I go for when I'm LARPing or portraying a character in tabletop, which is to look as extra as my character can while still being effective at what they do. Because you're not just standing there and posing for cosplay as a LARPer. You're inhabiting and living in that character's space for a weekend or so. Make sure you have easy access to the tools you need to do the character's job. Put a snack in the sack or pouch that you carry as well. You never know when you might get hungry. Look at how when you're all arranged, you look in the mirror. So you look at how you cast a shadow and consider how it's going to look in pictures, because quite a few games document their characters with photographs. So having a striking look is awesome when you're trying to remember a character or scene. There's some other things to remember when kitting out. Comfort. A skin-tight suit or chainmail on flesh, or whatever else that's like really striking but painful might seem like a cool idea, but it will damn well chafe. And while we've all made jokes about dying for the aesthetic, it's best if you're able to roleplay in the stuff you've chosen to wear for more than 5 minutes. This can be especially rough with makeup, but aside from rigid collodion and heavy scar makeup or blood makeup, I'm not really the person to ask on that. I don't have a whole lot of experience, so I can more just say that makeup comes with its own specific sets of considerations, and if you're doing like full body paint and stuff, look into getting like an airbrush. It'll help. Now let's talk about footwear. Gosh knows I'm bad about this, but it can kill your whole impression if you're wearing sneakers in a situation where boots or whatnot would be more appropriate. Not to mention, when you're gaming in the woods, having a pair of boots is a lot safer and more comfortable than using sneakers. Obviously, this is a very different situation in parlor LARPs like Vampire the Masquerade, and you can get away with whatever you think would be appropriate to your character, like dress shoes, stiletto heels, or raggedy-ass sneakers. Just depends on the character. Now let's talk a little bit about wigs. I'm going to be honest, I don't tend to use wigs. But when you're portraying someone with a very different look from yourself, wigs can be very helpful. I'm not really the guy to ask for this, not having a background in cosplay, but consult with your friends who do, and listen closely to their advice. The only wig I tend to regularly wear is when I'm reenacting, and that's incredibly hot and gets tangled easily. It also has to be period accurate, and I don't recommend getting a reenacting wig unless you're doing it for reenacting, because for LARPing, it's just too hot and not practical. So this was a short one today, so I'm going to go to my final thoughts now. And make sure that when you're going for an aesthetic in your character profile and kit, you follow through and don't get mixed up by too many things. Best to have something that's easily understandable so you're able to kind of give a quick impression visually of the character you're playing. It goes a long way towards establishing who you are in the eyes of other players, and that can be really good. I know that at my LARPs, because of the kit that I use, people tend to call me either the trooper or the guy with the big sword. I'm very visually recognizable, and they know to call for me. And that can be kind of a cool thing to do. But that being said, your character is going to evolve. Over time, you may get more motley and evolve your look and equipment as you play your character longer. And while I always advise keeping the base layer of clothes, armor, and gear that you've come in with, you're liable to have replaced, altered, and enhanced various parts of it. Just always try to keep a bit of what you started with early on for any given character as a sort of lodestar for yourself, if nothing else. That sort of visual continuity is nice in both pictures and for other players who, if they see like fully new tabard and armor and everything on you, they might think that you're playing a new character. So try to keep some things from month to month or game to game that are consistent. And finally, last but not least, the plugs. I'm going to Catalyst, the Lucid Dream next week, and I'm debuting a new Cyberpunk character there named Joe. Yes, he's a Proto Man reference. No, you should not be surprised by this. I highly recommend you all give Catalyst a look. Seems to be a cool community with welcoming folks. Also next week, I'm going to be doing a question and answer session as my content video for the week. So if you watch this, please comment and ask me stuff about role playing, either tabletop or LARP, that you want to hear me talk about and cover in the episode. I'll answer your questions and I'll speak at length about whatever subjects you bring up. If you're enjoying my content, please like, subscribe, and ring that little bell. Love you all and hope to be posting again soon. Later, folks.